All right, I'm going to continue on. I think I've told you most of this, but um, when I went back to school and got a 2-year degree, as you're doing right now, after that, I got a job at AT&T Bell Labs, and I programmed there for about 3.5 years. Then I was given the chance to go into education. I was in education for now again about 3.5 years, and I was under the presumption they had me working at 3 different campuses. I was told that I was going to be at one campus after 2 years. So after 3.5 years, I went in to not complain, but I was driving over 100 miles a day, and I wasn't getting gas mileage. All right, so they basically said, "What are you talking about? We never told you that." Well, the guy who told me that was a liar because he's the one who did tell me that. So I ended up taking a different job. And when I took the different job, I went into this aerospace company. They made governors for airplanes, they made governors for all sorts of vehicles and stuff. One of the reasons I decided to go there was I wasn't just a programmer. I had the title of programmer analyst. All right. And with programmer analyst, the idea was I met a lot with customers. They actually flew me out every month. I had to work with people from Caterpillar Tractor in Collinsville, Colorado. So every month they flew me out to Denver, and then I had to make the 75-mile drive to Collinsville. And it was fine. I mean, it worked out fine and whatever. But one of the things that I learned from working as an analyst is what you don't want to do is get what's called analysis paralysis. And that's when you keep spending all your time on analysis and analyzing things, but you never do. Oh, we're going to make this better. Oh, we haven't started it yet. Yeah, but we're going to make it better, but we haven't started it yet. That kind of an idea. All right? The reason I'm telling you that, you know this as well as I do. Everybody learns in different ways, right? I mean, some people can go and take a thing like this. They can go out to W3 schools and go through like the JavaScript tutorial and probably learn almost as much, or maybe they even think more than we learned in the AWD 1000 class. And everybody's different. Some people can do that. Some people have a harder time doing that. Well, I want to show you because I started to realize that I was going through not analysis paralysis, but for lack of better words, YouTube paralysis. Because I was checking out so many different people out on YouTube that were good. There's tons of really great information out there, and I'm sure you know that. But I was spending all my time watching videos, and I wasn't getting much of anything done. So I decided to cut down who I was watching, and I'm just going to show you a couple of them right now. You might care, you might not care. I don't know. But one guy, his name is Kyle Cook, and he's got a site that's called Web Dev Simplified, which I subscribe to. In fact, I've even bought his JavaScript course. All right. So if I go out here to Web Dev Simplified, I was surprised because I didn't even know
Today, we're
he
going to
had
build your
this.
very first REST API.
Maybe I'll look at that. Maybe we will build that one. I don't know what, as a first project to get started. I don't know. But he's got, notice, I mean, he's popular, 645,000 subscribers as opposed to Jeff Scott with his 118 with a bullet. But he does stuff on just about everything. Notice he's got an intro to web dev, learn JSON. He's got all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, if you went in there and decided that you really wanted to learn, let's say, because I'm going to look at his tonight on object-oriented JavaScript. Because I don't know what he has out there. Honest to goodness, I've never looked. All right. So when I did that, it didn't even bring me his. I guess I should have done it from inside of his. But there's a lot of stuff out there. All right. I know that Paul Smith is really a fan of Mosh Hamandani. And Mosh is good. I mean, he really is. He's got a lot of good stuff out there. I tended to lean towards this guy right here, and I probably even mentioned him to you already. But his name is Brad Traversy. All right. Now, some people don't like him for different reasons. First of all, I've got to tell you, just to be honest with you, I don't consider him to be dirty at all, but he thinks nothing of dropping an F-bomb while he's doing one of his lectures. All right. Or like if one of his kids come down, he'll be like, I don't know what's wrong with that little a-hole. but he won't say a-hole. You know what I'm saying? He'll do stuff. He doesn't do it often, but he does it occasionally. And when he gets upset or something, you sometimes hear it. But he must have, I would, if you told me he has 10,000 videos out here, I believe that. That's him right there. And he's got a very interesting life story. He was a drug addict. He cleaned himself up and totally self-taught. He went to community college, you said, for a semester. Not a technical college, but a community college. Figured basically he knew more than the people teaching him, so he dropped out. But he's one of those guys who just gets it. All right, and some of the examples that I'm using today are from him, and some are from the Web Dev Simplified. Now, I rewrote them, so they were my own stuff. All right, but I mean, he's got this. There's a thing in here. What was it? JavaScript array method, something like that. That's it. So he's got, and this presentation is 35 minutes long. So I based a lot of what I did off of this. Right,
so you want to be a software engineer at Google? Go to algoexpert.io. Pick a question. Read the prompt.
You know, he starts his videos out like that.
As I would have liked to. So I'll actually be adding some of this material.
And that's him. And he, like I said, I think he's pleasant enough to listen to. I'm actually one of his, I'm a Patreon of his, which means I pay $10 a month. And then when he releases new courses, he sends them to me for free. And a lot of times he's got really neat stuff in there, and I take a look at it. All right. I've never used one of his things in a class, but they help me learn things. So again, and with Kyle Cook on Web Dev Simplified, his array methods. No, I don't want to do it in there. I want to do it in here. So no, I want videos. All right, and there should be a source to search. So notice here's like how the reduce method. That's just on reduce. Most of his, and this is kind of when I was thinking that I might do something like this when I do retire. My wife just laughs when I say I'm going to retire. She's going to be so bored. She said the difference is now we won't have insurance, and now you won't be getting paid, but you'll be doing the same stuff. And she's like, what's the advantage of that? That's kind of a good point. All right, but he's got some stuff in here as well, and some of the ones that not in this one, but in one of the things that he created, I used some of his as examples. All right, so what I'd like you to do, at least for a while today, this is the file. So you'll notice it is about, I think it was around 300 lines long, more than I thought, 350 lines long. And there's examples. So what did I do? Well, first I came up and I created, and this is very similar to what Brad Traversy did in his. But I said, okay, these are items that are in a sporting goods shop. You can see the name of the item and you can see the price of the item. I'm not going to read those to you. You can see them. This is an array of objects. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 objects in here. Each object has a name. Each object has a price. All right. So the idea behind this, and this is the way that you should do this, okay? When you look in here, virtually up until you get down to the bottom, but virtually every statement that's in here that's got a console.log is commented out. And like I said, there are somewhere around maybe 30 examples. I don't know how many there are. All right. So if I wanted to print out the actual results of this first one that's right here, I would have to uncomment this first console.log. That makes sense? So what is this doing? Well, notice in here, I'm running the filter method, and this is what I'm trying to show you. All right. I'm creating a brand new array called cheap items, and I'm telling it to go through this items array, and I'm telling it to filter out just an individual item with a price of less than $50. So if I did it right, it should be what? These 3, then it should skip these 2 and do these 2. Does that make sense? All right. And then, so if I grab all of this, And again, if you're going to do this, and that's what I'd like you to do, because this is the only way you're going to learn this stuff, is to take a look at some examples. So if I grab this and now go back again, I can even do it from right here. I can right mouse click and choose inspect. It doesn't matter. All right. And then come over to here and go to console. Now your screen, I think I told you this before, is going to fill up fast. So to clear it, it's console.clear, paren, and then hit enter. But now if I put this in, so there it is, and nothing happens until I hit the enter key here. So if you look up on the screen, you'll notice it says, okay, I've got 5 items in here that met my criteria of having a price of less than 50. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if I go, I can expand this if you look up on the screen here, and it actually shows them to me. Right? But the idea as you work your way through here is you can start seeing how these methods are oftentimes used. All right? And that should make sense to everybody. So I've got that one. I'm just going to go through a couple of these. So now if I want to check the next one, and these are expensive items, so it's all the rest of them. So that was less than 50, but now I want greater than or equal to 50. So I want to take this first one that I put in here. I don't want to console log that anymore, so I've got to comment that back out, and then uncomment this one. All right, so now I can go and run this one. I tried to kind of delineate each one so you could see what was going on. All right, so now, again, I'll just clear this. You don't have to, but now when I paste that in, you'll notice now it says there were 3 items, and if you look at the price of each, they're all over $50 or more. All right, and as you work your way through here, I want you to notice what I said in here. I'm just going to grab this. When we grab this filter, which is what I just ran for you, we do not change the original array. Our original array was called items. So if I bring that out, they're all in there. So the idea is what you do is you filter out what you want and you put it into a new array. And it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. All right? So I'm not going to run through a lot of these. I'm just going to keep going. You know, did it find a basketball in there? It will, so it'll return true. Did it find golf balls? No, so it'll return false, type of an idea. And here I tried to make use of template literals. All right, so that will say item name, and then for each element that's in there, it'll show the name of the element followed by the price of the element. All right, and again, there's that sum and every. Remember, sum returns true. If we have anything that's priced over $100, and we do, it'll return true. If we had anything priced over $1,000, well, here we don't, so it'll return false. All right, and every means every one of them. This will return false because not every item that's in here is less than $100. This will return true because every item that's in here is less than $1,000. All right, and then here's the ones I want you to take a look at. Not rest and spread, but this is reduce. All right. What this will do is this will go through and grab all of those prices that you saw up on the top of all 8 items. All right. And it'll run through here, and it'll basically, this is a way of doing it. If we did it like this, that's with a regular for loop. This is how we do it with a for loop. All right. But when you do it with reduce, this is what you do. And it looks a little weird. One of the reasons that I'm going through and spending the time of doing this is if you go to work for a company and basically if what they're working on is fairly new, this is the kind of stuff you're going to be doing. All right? So with this reduce method, what it does is we're creating a new variable called current total. All right? And current total is going to be an accumulator. It's going to accumulate the price of each individual item. All right? And it looks a little weird because when you look, this thing, see that paren that you see right there? It ends here. So we're telling it that we want you to go and loop through this and add each price to something called current total, and this means start at 0. All right? And it's a little bit different because we're used to going in and setting up a variable and initializing it to 0, etc. And now we don't have to do that kind of stuff. All right? Here are some examples with map. And you'll notice I went through this item names. All right? And the item names have both the name and the price. We're just plucking out the name. We could do it again and just pluck out the price. So what we're doing is we're creating new arrays. This is a new array just called item names, one called item prices. All right? Then I went and grabbed this. This was, again, based off of the stuff that Traversy had. All right? And so I've got a bunch of names. I couldn't think of a bunch of names for people from St. Louis, so the last two are people I used to work with. And we've got start dates and we've got end dates. All right? And, you know, like for me, that is right now, unless they make me retire earlier, that is my designed retire date right now. But then I looked at people, for example, like Mr. Grow-Herring and Mr. Parsons in there, and they're a lot younger than me, etc. This is Mr. Gudmested, this is Mr. Smith, etc. All right? But then I did much of the same kinds of stuff. So I said, okay, if I wanted to log out all the information on each instructor, I could do it in a for loop. Not a problem. It would have worked just fine. But notice what you get from using a for each. You no longer have to create a separate variable, I. You don't have to test it. You don't have to increment it. Okay? Much of that work has been automated for you. That's what I'm trying to show there. If you want to just pluck out a piece, instructor is the name of the object. So instructor.name will allow you to just pull out the list of instructor names. Then, as I mentioned, I took these numbers, told you this before, these are just random numbers I threw up there and created a new array that's empty called canVote. This is a way of doing it with a for loop. So I would be, all I'm doing is grabbing the ages, so I don't have people's names associated with them, just the ages. All right? And there are about 15 or so people in there, and most of them can vote, I believe. All right? And then I just log them out. And then I say, okay, well, is this easier? I think it is. So we use the filter. All right? And we're saying, again, if it's greater than or equal to 18, return true. The ones that are returned are what are going to print out here. And Gabriel, I know you had asked about this. So this is doing it the, quote, old way with function, and that's the, quote, new way. All right, and that's the new way using the arrow functions. This looks a little weird because you see this one, and then you see this one. This is an arrow function. When the equal sign comes first, it's an arrow function. This is just a test. Is the age greater than or equal to 18? But notice how we can take something that took this much work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, all right, with a for loop, and we could knock that down, I'm sure, to probably 4 or so. But we can do it again here in one line. So brevity is one of the real reasons that a lot of this stuff was done. And since there is brevity, typically it's going to run faster as well. Here I went through here and I said just filter out the people who are from the AWD department. And so that's going to ferret out me and Mr. Gudmested and Mr. Smith. All right, and then I showed again how it could be done with the arrow function. All right, and then I've got not still here. And I put in some people who have retired or left. And how do I know that? Because their end date was less than this year. And I looked at it, and if their end date was greater than or equal to this current year, they're still here. All right. I mean, there's other ways we could have tested for it, but you get the idea. Then I said here a while. Well, I put a bunch of dates in the future, but I did this to show you can do math in there. So I took the end date and subtracted from the end date the start date. And if it was more than 20 years, I said they've been here a while. All right, really, the only one of all of us in here at this institution who's been here that long has been Mr. Corrigan. All right. And then there's a bunch of stuff in here with sort. When you run through it, all right, what you're going to notice when you start going through it is, notice as it says here, ages.sort. When you do a sort like this, so I'm doing a sort there of that numeric list I showed you. All right, and I think like the first one might be 13, and then comes 2, because 1 comes before 2. All right, there are different ways that you can fix this, and they can start getting smaller. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way. This is going to go through and check each one in the sort function, and as it works its way down, it's going to change the order as necessary. All right. This is a little bit nicer, because again, it's on one line. And again, you see the arrow function that's in there. All right. Now, to make sure that it works and you're able to sort numbers, you do this inside of there, A1 minus A2. And I cannot give you a good explanation of what that is or why that works. But if you do basically check that in W3 schools, they give you one. I don't want to sit and read that to you, all right? But I thought it was a pretty decent explanation. Now, notice if you look on the screen here, what's in gray? A1 minus A2. That'll do it in ascending order. How do you do it in descending? You change the order. Instead of A1 minus A2, it's A2 minus A1. So that will give you a numeric sort in reverse order. All right. Again, there's some more reduce examples there. And the last thing that I put in here, again, this is what Traversy did as well, was to show you that you can combine all of these. So here we grab this ages array and we do a map over it. We just double everybody's age. I don't know why, we just did it. Then we filter out, okay, after you've doubled it, how many people have an age greater than or equal to 75? Then we sort what's left in ascending order, and then we reduce it, so we add up all those ages to give us a final result. So again, the idea behind that is I'd like you to run through as many of these. You're not going to memorize these, but I want you to hopefully start to develop a little bit of a comfort level with them, so that when we are doing something as a class, and I go, okay, now you take it from there, and you're working with an array, you've got an idea of how to manipulate that array. That all makes sense? All right. I would also say, you don't have to do this, but if you want to, what you may want to do is, I think that in this JavaScript tutorial, I believe it's somewhere in here. I thought they had a section here that's the first thing I looked at. Object-oriented in JavaScript, W3 schools. No, that doesn't go on. That's the one. Okay. So if you want to start, notice it's JS objects. Again, you're not going to become an expert. You'll notice under the array methods in here, they've got most of the ones that we've covered. All right. And they've got examples of everything that's in there. All right. So the idea was, I figured this would end sometime around 2 o'clock. Okay, it's closer to 1:45. But that this is going to be it as far as the time we spend on arrays. All right. Tomorrow we'll do the same kind of thing, and I'll have a fairly simplistic application of using JavaScript, and I'm writing it right now, but I'd like to write it in 2 ways. JavaScript, again, is an object-based programming language, meaning that it has total object-oriented capability, but you don't have to use it. I'm currently right now developing an OOP program both in using standard type of object orientation, all right, which is what we're used to. It's not going to look that different from what we did in the C#, not that different from what Angie did, for example, last spring in Java, but it also allows you to do what's called prototype and prototype adherence. It's a little bit different. What you can do in JavaScript is, like, I can go out to JavaScript. Would you agree JavaScript has a string class? Would you agree with that? Which has got a bunch of string methods on it. If there's a method out there that I think is cool, but man, I wish it did this, I can basically add to an existing JavaScript method. All right, and that's what I want to show you tomorrow. All right, and then let's see. So 501, it looks like. Then after that, so this will end with 16, how to work with objects. So that'll get us into the 4th section. It says there, take it to the next level. And notice 17 is all about functions and closures, all right, and modules. And chapter 18 is on asynchronous JavaScript. That one will take more time, and I want us to build 2 or 3 applications as a class doing that. All right. Chapter 19 we'll go over, but just not right away, because that's the introduction to Node.js. All right. And I'm looking at it that, hey, by no later, I did not look. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not look at what you guys gave me last week. I'm hopefully going to do it tonight. As far as that Flexbox and CSS grid and whatever type of stuff. All right. But I'm hoping that I want that to be done by Friday at the latest. So if you are going to make changes to it, fine. Then give me an updated one by Friday. That all makes sense? All right, so we'll pick it up then tomorrow on chapter 16, how to work with objects. It's a fairly long chapter. It's about 50 pages. Okay, so we'll talk about it then.